company town illustrates these points very well because a company town concentrates political and economic power. The object of the students studying company towns, such as Kannapolis, is to go down to the grassroots community level and analyze how power is structured.
Well, I tell you, Mr. Cannon done a wonderful job.
Mr. Charlie's done all right with me.
Sometimes I get a fair shake, sometimes I don't.
Balloons don't run, we don't work.
Mr. Cannon's a good man to work for.
Well, you might say a one-man town.
I like it pretty good.
We lovingly and affectionately, respectfully call him Uncle Charlie.
Yeah, it's a sort of medieval feudal idea. There's, the people in Kannapolis don't really make a separation between the mill, the man who owns the mill, and the town which the mill also owns, and which is, owned by the man too. The policeman is just as much an employee of Cannon Mills as the weaver is, and so is the newspaper editor and everybody else in town.
I'm John Foster, and my partner in the project is Danny Clodfelter. We got to Kannapolis in early June, and all we knew about the town was that Mr. Charlie, that's Charlie Cannon, owned a town of 35,000 people.
Look to Cannon Mills for opportunity. Look to Cannon Mills for security. Better working conditions, friendly people too. A good place to work. Cannon may have a job for you.
This is Arthur Smith for Cannon Mills, an equal opportunity employer. I'd like to invite you to go by one of the 3 Cannon personnel offices. Plant 6 in Concord, Plant 1 in Kannapolis, or Swink Plant, Highway 29A South Salisbury. They'll talk with you about the opportunity you want to apply yourself and get ahead in an interest in business. They'll talk with you about security. Many people have been with Cannon 15, 20, and 30 years.
For opportunity and security, it's Cannon Mills.
It's hot and nosy, and a lot of lint.
Pension. I don't get any.
White man, you go uptown up there, and they got car shades and air conditioning, sidewalk, and 9 or 10 room where about 2, 3 living in it. Come down here, you got 6 or 7, just 3-room house, Don't add no more rooms to nothing.
One of the things that's been hardest for me to understand this summer is why the company itself, Cannon, has not been more cooperative with us. We have not been able to make contact with a high company official.
May I see you, sir? Listen, I've been trying to catch you for the last 3 or 4 days at the office. It's been terribly difficult. I'd like to talk with you if that's possible.
No, I don't want to.
Well, could you talk with me, sir?
I'm sorry.
Please, sir, could I catch you at the office?
It's as if almost that the company feels like they don't have to answer to anyone or be responsible to anyone.
I think Kannapolis should have a mayor. You take like Concord, well, they got a mayor. I mean, it's smaller than Kannapolis. And look at all those projects they got out there, low-income rentals. Don't make no difference who you work for. If you stay in them places, like in Cannon houses, you stay here, you work there, you all right. You get fired, you don't stay there no more.
The first of every month, he gets a $20 check from Cannon Mills retirement plan.
I realize that we don't never hear the union side of things that they try to do. We just hear the bad side.
You've got to have 20 consecutive years if you're off the payroll or out or quit, terminated in any way off the payroll, you don't get anything. But you do get your money back, but you only get 2% interest on it.
Like they say, this is about the only places that you can find and stay unless you have enough money to build your own home. And to get that money, you have to work for Charlie Cannon.
Well, what makes racism so galling in Kannapolis isn't that it's so apparent or that it's existent, because it's existent everywhere in the South and most places in the United States. That sort of racism isn't really unique. But what makes it unique is that it's perpetuated by a corporation, and a corporation which depends very heavily on a national buying public to buy its brand name products. You got how many kids?
I have 5 kids.
And how many rooms you got here?
I got 3 rooms and a bath.
Good gosh. Does having 7 people in 3 rooms get to be?
It's very crowded.
Yeah.
It's very crowded. In order to have one nice room,
right,
I put my kids' bed in my room in order to try to keep one nice room, you know?
Yeah.
So if somebody come in, they have a place to sit.
I see.
You know? And I try to keep one nice room.
I see. So you got, what, 4 kids living in one room and one kid?
I got 5 kids living in one room. I got 1 baby sleep with me and my husband.
Oh, so you don't really have any privacy?
No, yeah, but the only time I have to come out of that room to have some privacy.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Gosh, have you ever tried to get a bigger house?
Yes, he have put in for a bigger house. But it's no bigger. It's nothing but 4 rooms, period, in the color section.
Yeah. You mean the biggest room, the biggest house that the color
in the
people
color
have
section,
yeah.
it's a 4-room house. And I was real glad to get the place. I'll be honest with you. I was so glad to be in Kannapolis house, and I still am. But I would like to have more room.
Right.
Because I wanted some water. You know, I have kids, and I needed to be around some hot water.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm glad to be here. I'll be honest with you. But I would like to have more room.
Well, you know, about this interview, are you afraid you might get in trouble with the mill and lose your job or something?
No, I'm not afraid of losing my job. I might lose it. Now, I'll be honest with you. They just might take it away from me. And then again, by me staying in a company house, they probably take that too. But actually, you know, we've been down a long time, ever since I can remember. See, and anything that's gonna help me, I speak for it.
Right. Yeah.
See, because as long as I feel like I'm telling the truth, nothing's gonna hurt.
Well, do you think any you know, that these people down here will ever be able to live better? I mean, you think there's a chance for the future?
Yes, they open their mouth.
Yeah.
And talk.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to talk.
But you don't think Cannon Mills is just going to turn around and start, you know, letting these people live in better houses?
No, I don't. No, because they don't care how we live. I figure that. If they cared, they'd be doing better by now.
Yeah.
Now, no, I don't think they'll ever just make up their own mind and do this.
Yeah.
I really don't. No. I think if they sit and take it like we're taking it, we'll be here forever. See?
Yeah, this idyllic sort of town non-government is fine, and the people are very happy so long as they do their job right and you know, don't cross Charlie Cannon's path. You know, there are no problems, but this pleasant little town begins to show its ugly side when somebody steps out of line. It's not a very good place to live if you're black, if you're a union man, if you're, you know, dissatisfied with having your government controlled by an economic unit. How long have you been working up at Cannon Mills?
Approximately 46 years. I've worked in practically every department.
Is the dust in there pretty bad?
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
If you've never been in a textile plant, you won't know until you go in there and see for your own self.
Yeah.
Well, you could almost get covered up during a period of 8 hours. I mean, lint flying constantly all the time.
Right.
It's pretty during your 8 hours period of work.
Right. Yeah.
And this lint, in the process of 8 hours, this lump forms in my throat. And you can't get it up, you can't get it down. And without taking these pills that the doctor gives me, well, I just almost smother. Oh, yeah, I passed out twice up there. One time, I passed out and they had to give me oxygen.
Good gracious.
And another time, I was standing at the end of my looms. And what happened, I don't know, and the doctors never figured it out.
Yeah.
I just went just as blind as a bat.
Is that right? You couldn't see anything?
I couldn't see nothing. They had to lead me out of the mill and come home, and my wife put cold towels on me for about 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah. Did you go see Dr. Stevens, you know, the mill doctor?
No, they won't do nothing about nothing like that.
Is that right? They didn't. He didn't give you any medicine?
They didn't give me no medicine or nothing other than they did have to give me oxygen one time.
But they never have run any tests on you to see what
No,
this
sir.
breathing problem is?
No, sir.
What about paying for the medicines and all that?
I have to pay my own doctor bill and my drug bill.
And the mill never pays for any of that?
No, sir.
Good gracious, gracious. Well, you think you're going to be able to work much longer in the weave room or the card room, or are you
Well,
working there now?
I can't work in the card room or weave room, either one right now. Now, I went to my superintendent and explained to him the situation about the lint and how it affected me, and I told him, I said, I'd like to have a different job.
Mm-hmm.
And
the only one they could give you was one that made you take a cut in pay.
Well, that was all they had at that point.
Yeah.
Now, I've never been back to them. I've never asked them nothing. I've tried to go along with it the best that I could.
Yeah. What are they paying you now?
$2.06 an hour.
$2.06 an hour. And we've been working there 46 years or so?
Yeah.
That's something.
It's pretty rough.
What about the heat in there? Does it bother the people much? They have a pass out?
Well, we have them practically every day. In some department, pass out from the heat.
When they pass out, what happens? Do they take them to the mill doctor and he does?
Well, on some occasions they take them to the mill doctor, and other occasions they send them home.
Is that right? But they're expected to come back to work the next day? And
oh, they want you. Well, they don't want you to go to work. Go home in the first place. They want you to come to and go back to work.
Is that right?
That's
right. There are people that pass out from heat and they go right back to work? Right. Yeah, I guess so. Well, do you think most of the people in town would be afraid to do an interview like this? Or?
There's a certain class of people in this town is absolutely scared of their own shadow. As far as working conditions, they've tried to get a union here several times, and the people are actually scared. They had a union here way back, and some guy run off with the money with some other man's wife, and it's got these people scared to death. They even talk union to them.
Is that right? Yeah.
Now, some of the older people now. I don't mean these younger people, because they're not scared of anything.
Right, yeah.
And I'd like to see the young people get something done, if possible.
Yeah. Well, does Charlie Cannon have pretty good control over this town?
Oh, yeah. He can. Well, he owns everything around here.
I guess he does, yeah.
In other words, but...
How do you think the people feel about it?
Well, as a whole, Mr. Cannon is very fair. To a certain extent.
Yeah.
But I think I'd like to see something done about it if it's possible. And I don't want to see nobody in no trouble. I don't want to see nobody get fired. I don't want to see nobody have to work under those conditions if it can be bettered.
Right, yeah.
I think Mr. Cannon has always taken a personal interest in his help.
It was hot. It was supposed to be air conditioned.
I know of lots of people who have worked in weave rooms before, and their hearing always goes bad. Not everybody, but there's a lot of people.
It's my next door neighbor. There's a lot of noise. You have to work there about 6 months before you can hear yourself talking, and you come home and you get home and you start hollering at everybody because you're afraid they can't hear you. And everybody's saying, "What are you hollering for?" I don't know. I didn't know I was hollering.
Man, after I'd been in that place, a couple of places in particular, after I'd been in there about 20 minutes, man, I thought I had TB the way I was coughing and hacking and carrying on around there.
Byssinosis is an occupational respiratory disease that affects flax, hemp, and cotton workers who work in the preparation of these various vegetable fibers. People who have worked in dust for many years have been found to have a higher prevalence of shortness of breath and chronic bronchitis.
What have you found the incidence of the disease to be in North Carolina?
Well, 3 plant studies have been done in North Carolina, and the prevalences in these 3 particular plants, all of which have processed intermediate to low grades of cotton, have ranged between 6 and 25% plant-wide, and in the preparation areas, in the carding departments, have ranged between 20 and 40%.
I always assumed that there were people in the state officials who would, protect the workers and make sure that the factories were run safely and, more or less, healthy conditions were existent.
Well, we subscribe very strongly to the 3 E's and 3 P's of accident prevention, namely engineering, education, and enforcement. The 3 P's are perseverance, persuasion, and prosecution.
Well, what about the last 2, enforcement and prosecution?
Well, enforcement prosecution naturally is a last resort. And normally, when we run into a situation with the cooperative efforts of the Department of Health, and we're able to get those conditions corrected without going to prosecution. We don't believe that you can prosecute safety.
Mr. Crane, I understand you've been Commissioner of Labor for some time. Has the Occupational Health Section ever failed to get compliance from an industry and had to, ask you to force compliance?
Well, I wouldn't say that we failed to gotten it. We haven't gotten 100% compliance, but we usually work out compliance. You can find out by going through the process of perseverance, persuasion, and then getting around to that you can get those things worked out more quickly than you can by going through due process, the indictment, court cases, and all the rigmarole surrounding that.
Yes, sir. I see. So then do you believe that going through the Justice Department involving litigation, enforcing these laws through the courts is essentially the wrong way to approach these problems?
No, I believe in going by the democratic process of due process, that you should have a channel and you should go through due process.
I see. Yes, sir. Have you ever run across any infractions of working condition standards at Cannon Mills in Kannapolis?
Well, I wouldn't exactly classify them as glaring violations and all, but we constantly make recommendations, and practically every plant we go into, we make recommendations.
I see. Could we see the record on Cannon Mills?
No, under the laws of the state of North Carolina, that's privileged information.
I see. You can't divulge...
individual company.
I see. You can't divulge what infractions of noise or dust have been made?
Well, we haven't made any studies. I've got nothing to divulge on that.
I see.
On noise and dust.
What about, temperature or working hours? Or?
Well, we say that's privileged information and all, that we don't divulge individual companies.
I see. I see. Do you think that's, do you agree with the law that makes that privileged information? Would you like to see that changed? Do you think it should be?
No, I think due process is the best way to approach that, and I don't think that the records, although they're semi-public, quasi-public, that they should be open where any and everybody come in on a fishing expedition.
The textile industry says there's never been a diagnosed case of bisonosis in North Carolina. Well, we found Jack Jackson, who seemed to have trouble with his lungs, and another man named Charlie Bertram. We went to see Dr. Wheeler, an internist in Charlotte, who was going to examine them for bisonosis. While Dr. Wheeler didn't commit himself to saying that Jack Jackson had bisonosis, Jack Jackson has all the symptoms that a bisonotic has. And under the present laws of North Carolina, he won't receive a penny of workman's compensation.
Well, I hope to work there a long time. I'm not planning on quitting.
Well, I like it all right, the place I'm working at,
Young man got a good opportunity with Cannon.
Just run down, work myself to death more than anything else.
We made a good living while we was working there. We had to work hard, and I hope to go back to first of the year and make me a little bit more of it.
Hi, young lady. How are you? Hey, how are you? Hi, man. How you doing? Okay, dude.
Well, how did your leaf leading go today?
Went along real good.
That's good. I noticed you were getting quite a bit of business out there in front of the thing.
Yes. I don't think we'd have a whole lot of trouble organizing them if they understood what the union was and how it worked. But very few of them understand it, and they live and work in a town that's completely dominated by the man that owns the mill, Charlie Cannon. There's no American can be satisfied living in under the conditions they live in under, but they don't know how to help themselves, and so far, the union haven't been able to teach them how they can help themselves. Would you like to have something cold to drink? As soon as the unions can do that, we'll organize them. See, North Carolina workers are the lowest paid workers in the nation, the lowest paid industrial workers that there is. The average Social Security payment in North Carolina is $89 a month. All of their benefits, such as workman's comp, unemployment compensation. They're on the bottom. And the reason that they're like that is because the workers have no say whatsoever in their political life. Practically every precinct chairman in Cabarrus County is a cannon mill overseer. He has control of the precincts, precinct chairmen, the registers are cannon mill overseers. It's hard, almost impossible to find a place to meet in Kannapolis. There's approximately 15,000 workers involved in this area, cannon mill workers trying to organize them, and it's almost impossible to get a place where you can seat over 50 people. And then if someone does rent the union a place, pressure's put on that person to give it up.
Do you think this feeling of wanting to make sure they hold the job is really the kind of the key thing?
I actually think that it is. I believe that if Charlie Cannon told them that if they voted for a city incorporation or they put on a real fuss about electing a school board, and he told them if they did, they'd fire them, I think they would drop it. I think they would sacrifice all the freedom that they have in order to hold these jobs.
If these mills was to go dead here, why everything else would go dead, because the people that's in the mills what holds it up.
Well, we have some really nice homes here around the neighborhood. I don't see a thing wrong with them.
They don't, if they want to do something, they just do it, you know. They don't ask nobody about it. They want to tear up a street, they tear it up. If they want to move a house, they just move it.
I appreciate his force, Cannon's force.
It's a very simple sort of life to lead. You know, many of your decisions are made not by yourself and not by people you elect, but by somebody else, and that, you know, that just removes a great deal of thinking that some people find necessary.
He's a good man and has been good for our community. I was raised in the adjoining county of Rowan and lived there until 2 years ago when I moved my family here. I have been employed by Cannon Mills as a worker, not as an attorney, and worked there for some 8 years while I was going to school trying to get my education, and they've been mighty good to me. They were good, have been good to my people.
How do you feel about Mr. Cannon's empire?
Mr. Cannon, although people may think to the contrary because of the fact that he is a wealthy man and because a lot of people work for him, think that he is a person of a great deal of power, but he's not that powerful a man as far as politics are concerned or his control of the community.
Do you think that the measure of Mr. Cannon's control has been exaggerated?
I think it's been greatly exaggerated by those persons who are opposed to Cannon Mills. Now, much of the trouble which has come about was instituted by some of the attempted unionization of Cannon Mills. This has been something that has caused a lot of bad publicity as far as people coming in and they want to condemn Cannon Mills and in an effort to try to unionize. Now, unionization has not been able to get into Cannon Mills because he is good to his people and people enjoy working there. As far as his control of the business district is concerned, every bit of this has been for the benefit of the public. Now, he could have said, well, we're not going to have any variety stores, any clothing stores, and things of this nature. He could have refused to ever have built any homes there for which he rents to the people for a pittance. But because there was a need, and this, I think, is basically Charlie Cannon, that where there's a need, he sees that it's fulfilled.
What about the issue of incorporation? Do you think, there might be a time when the people of Kannapolis would need a responsive government which they had elected rather than an economic unit?
Well, this is a question that would have to be answered by each individual as to their preference of this. Most of the people whom I have known, the people I worked with, and I worked with the working people in Cannon Mills, not the boss men or the supervisors, people like this. I had dealings with them, but no more so than any other worker would have. And I would say that those people are the ones that have to decide whether or not they want an incorporated town. If they do, then fine. They could have their incorporated town by petition. But if they don't want it, then they continue to receive the services for free. It would be up to them.
Never even crossed my mind. I don't know. Just, heck, I don't know. It just never occurred to me. I never thought too much about it.
Well, I'll tell you the truth, I just don't know much about that. Just tell you the truth.
Well, I like it just like it is.
I don't have any comments. I don't have any complaints. I don't have any comments.
I don't know. It don't much matter to me about that kind of stuff. I just stay at home, tend to my own business. That's about it.
I have thought a lot of times, just within myself, what would happen if something would happen to Mr. Cannon, because I really don't believe there's nobody else could step in his shoes. Right offhand, I don't know nobody.